Well, hello, and welcome to Worship Leader Wednesday by worshiptutorials.com, where we help you become a better worship leader with practical advice. Hey, and if you want to go further as a worship leader, we have a course called the Worship Manual. Volume 1 is available now. It is 50 plus videos long, over 9 hours of content. Link below if you want more information on that. But today, we're talking about 3 fatal mistakes to avoid in worship leading and in life.
Fatal. You will actually die if you do these things. So here are some things you want to avoid at all cost as you are worship leading and leading your team. Number 1 mistake that I've committed, that I've seen committed many times, and that some of you are probably committing even right now, and that is a phrase I like to call winging it.
Oh.
What is winging it, Brian?
Well, I think at its heart, it's laziness, right?
Partly, yeah.
Because usually when you wing it, it's because you didn't prepare yourself ahead of time.
Or overconfidence.
Or overconfidence, yeah.
Whatever reason.
Well, I don't need, I know this song, I don't need to practice it. Or even, not worse, but in a similar situation, like, I'm going to say something to the congregation between these 2 songs.
I'm not going to practice
I've done it a million times. I'm not going to think about what I'm going to do.
I'm just going to
Bad idea.
Yes. Winging it, not being prepared, overestimating your skills. I've done this before where it's like, you know, you got a rehearsal coming up and you glance at the songs and you're like, oh, I'm good. And then you get there and you're like, oh, snap. Like, praises, we're doing that in F.
Yeah, usually
I've never played it.
Usually it's in B.
Yeah, so now it's like I'm in this mode of winging it, and when you do that...
I had to spend significant time practicing that yesterday.
Yeah.
And like, on B, I can just play it.
Could you imagine if you winged it?
If I hadn't practiced it, just showed up to rehearsal,
it
would have been a train wreck.
It would have been terrible.
Would have been more of a train wreck than it was already.
And winging it is not just music, but it's also the way you approach your team, the way you approach your leadership, the way you have events. Hey, we're going to have an event, but, you know, we'll kind of see how it unfolds, see how it happens.
Yeah, bad idea.
Things that are great normally don't happen by accident.
No.
So don't wing it.
Tip number 2 is this. Don't rely too much on yourself. Now, what do you mean by that, Fuller?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people build ministries around them.
Right.
Like maybe you're like a really talented vocalist and you build your whole ministry around that.
Okay.
And so when you're not there...
Oh, yeah.
It's like the wise man who built his house on the rock or the fool that built his house on the sand. The whole thing kind of crumbles. Yeah. And so you can't build your teams around your gifting. Right. You know, and so you can't rely on yourself like, oh, you know, I'm going to... Because a lot of time as worship leaders, you know, a lot of times we're, at least at the beginning, the most qualified person or the most competent or maybe the most musical. But as you build teams, you got to surround yourself with other people that have great gift sets. Yeah. And if you rely on your own talents too much, one, you'll get to a point where you hit a lid, and so it won't get better because you're the cap, or you know you'll stop growing. You know, you'll become outdated or whatever reason. You run out of ideas. Right. And so you have to rely on other people. Plus, empowering other people is fun, and it gives them the opportunity to shine.
It's fun, but it's hard work.
It's hard, but it actually, in the long run, it's easier.
It makes your life way easier. Yes.
Yeah, you know, maybe you just do too much stuff. Like, you do all of the PCO, and you send out the emails, and you put the click tracks, and you make the charts, and you set up the sound system, and it's like, that's like kind of overwhelming.
You need help.
You know, and we talked about this in our last video, like not how to not get burned out, you know? But being able to just empower other people is a critical thing that I've seen a lot of worship leaders struggle with, because our natural tendency is just to do everything yourself, you know. But the reality is, if you can empower other people, then you're going to build a ministry that's not reliant on you, and I think that honors God.
And I think a good litmus test for that would be if you took a weekend off.
What happens?
What happens at your church?
That's a great litmus test.
Does the level of excellence take a huge nosedive?
Yeah.
And if it does, then you should try to really build teams around you of people who are not just as talented as you, but more talented, and talented in different ways. And then when in different maybe genres, or can do different things. But then when you do that, all of a sudden now when you ask for a weekend off, senior pastor's like, okay, oh, you know what? It's going to be awesome. he's led this team
Yes.
or she's led this team and they can do it.
Yes.
And I think sometimes people feel threatened by that.
Yeah.
Musicians feel threatened by other musicians who are as talented or more talented than they are. It's a huge thing. And if you don't think it's a thing, then you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
Or maybe you just don't struggle with that, but a lot of people do. Musicians do. You have to get over that.
Yeah. I remember when I first started and went away for a weekend and I came back and people were like, oh man, it just wasn't the same without you. And I remember going,
that's supposed to be a compliment.
That's
but it's
not a good thing. And I think that's if you go away and you come back and you're like, yeah, it's not as good when I'm not gone. That's not good.
Yeah, don't.
That's not a good thing.
Don't puff your chest.
Yeah,
out,
exactly.
Right?
You're actually not being a great leader.
Right.
My goal is that when I leave, people are like, "Oh, it was amazing," or even better than when I was there. Hopefully they'll be like, "But we missed you," but not really. And that's where
you were going.
That's where, seriously.
Why don't you stay another
week? Get rid of this guy. Hey, take 2 weeks off. It's on us. But yeah, so you wanna build teams around other people's gifts. So the third tip, the third huge mistake to avoid is, I just say, not having a day planner, not having a calendar system, not being organized. Right. That's a huge mistake that a lot of musicians are plagued with. And I had to learn that the hard way. It took me about a decade to really learn how to be what I would consider like an executive type person. You know, where you're organized, you're keeping a day planner. There's nothing tackier than like having someone show up for a meeting that you forgot about. Hey, Billy Bob's here. He's here to meet you. He's the new drummer, and you're like,
and you forgot.
Snap, I forgot. It's happened to all of us, right?
You know what's funny is Fuller texted me earlier today, and he said, "Brian, I'm on my way over. Are we still good to film the Worship Leader Wednesday videos?" And my response to Fuller was, "I completely forgot. I'm good."
But at least you didn't have any other conflicts,
right?
So
because we did it on a different day.
And if you're managing a team, that's critical. If you're managing a staff or you're a part of multiple things, I mean, if you got kids and all this stuff and everything's you got to have some sort of organization. And I've seen so many musicians just like flake out, and that is not a good path to success. When you can create a system that works for you, whether it be an iPhone calendar or like me, I like to write things down on paper. I have a bullet journal where I keep stuff, and I'm very organized. So I know. I mean, I look at my week and I see the whole week. I see 2 pages. I see everything I got going on, and then I can then go, oh wow, I got a lot to do, or hey, I'm good. But if you don't do that, your anxiety is going to go up, and the people won't respect you as much if you're constantly forgetting things or not showing up to stuff. Or, I forgot about that. I think keeping organization is a huge opportunity for a lot of us as musicians. And as people who lean towards the right brain, becoming a little bit more left brain is a really good thing.
Well, a lot of times worship leaders, but maybe most of the time, are hired based on their skill set as a musician. Right? Because you have to have that to be a worship leader. You have to be able to at least sing. And probably play an instrument as well. And so you're a musician. And musicians stereotypically, and we found it mostly to be true, are terrible with organization and that kind of thing, and administration. But really what you're hired to do as a worship leader, whether you're church or senior leadership or you realize it or not, what you're hired to do is manage a team.
It's highly administrative.
You are a manager, right? And so if you can't do that, your success as a worship leader will never, ever, and ultimately your church will suffer, and you'll never be as good as you could be if you learn how to administrate and manage.
And the cool thing about this is there are a billion resources out there. Every time I take my kids to Barnes and Noble, I buy a book on organization or leadership development or something. We're all about like hanging out in Kemper forums and talking about Helix and Line 6 and our tone and how to get the drummer to play it. But when it comes to this other stuff, it doesn't seem very exciting to us. Mm-hmm. But once you start realizing the impact and the power of it, you start, when I'm looking at books at Barnes & Noble and I see something like, how to double your efficiency, I'm like, that excites me.
And really your potential, your ability to lead teams as an organizational administrative leader is what will unlock your potential as a worship leader. It's not going to be how well you can sing a song. I mean, that has to be there, but how well you lead teams is way more important, honestly. And it's more important for the life of your church as well. And that's what's going to set your church up to grow. and to succeed, honestly, is how well you can lead teams.
And I think a lot of times when we talk about this stuff, our natural tendency is to think, oh, I'm good at that, or we do those things well. So I would just give you 3 practical questions right now, practical steps. Number 1, ask yourself, when's the last time I winged it? Am I winging it now? Have I winged it in the last few weeks? Just ask yourself, be honest with that, correct that. Number 2 is, when is the last time I empowered someone? When is the last time I asked somebody to do something that I normally do? And then number 3 is, what do I have going on in the next couple weeks? Yeah. Can you answer that question? And if you can't and you don't have a system, let's make some moves. Let's make some actions.
Make a system.
Make a system and make it happen.
Thank you so much for watching. Hey, we'd love to have you join the conversation, whether it's here on YouTube. Leave comments below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But we also upload these videos and have discussion around them over on Facebook. There is a group there called WT Leaders. Link for that below as well. We'd love to have you join the group and be part of the community. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.